Hi everyone, it's been a long time. As usual, we're going to start off with some house cleaning about the channel. So first of all, this survey is still ongoing. It's not really with a goal in mind in terms of, getting a result, but just to gauge where people are watching and listening to the channel and reading the articles. Second thing is, so on that note, we are going to be publishing, I'm going to be publishing on Library. And so far, it's a very user-friendly site. Unlike BitChute, I do believe that uploads are going to be rather smooth. So I encourage you to check out the link, which I'll put on the description of this video. And you can check that out along with the BitChute and YouTube sites. I just think it's a good way to get away from the algorithm. And look, the the streams are crisp. It's not streams, but the uploads are crisp. I watched Bombird's body language on it, and it was pretty smooth, in fact. So, latest article, you might remember I interviewed Stephen Jimenez about a month ago to talk about his upcoming new addition to his book, The Book of Matt, which is coming out in June. And on that note, I've actually been corresponding with Jimenez once in a while about various topics, and I would say it's a little bit of a surprise because I'm known to be not really the best friend of the gay community, but I think it's great to see that there are people of every background who do believe that the factual basis of the story is more important than the symbolism behind it. And that's why I think you should pick it up. And I don't think you should judge people like Jimenez strictly based on what they do in their personal life, because I think he's pretty much taken a lot of crap for, going and looking into a very unpopular point of view, which is that Matthew Shepard was not murdered based on his gay lifestyle. Matthew Shepard was probably murdered. And it's very, very clear that the real motive was likely due to his murderer, Aaron McKinney, having some sort of, first of all, robbing him, and because of their mutual involvement in drug dealing in Laramie, Wyoming, back in the late 90s. And furthermore, another unpopular thing that Jimenez really harped on in the book, which is, it's good for him, is that McKinney's accomplice was exactly that. He was an accomplice, but not really a murderer. Russell Henderson. Russell Henderson never really intended to kill anyone. Russell Henderson happened to be in Aaron McKinney's company for that week, and he just happened to be there when Aaron McKinney was going through some very, very deep involvement in I guess what you would call a meth haze. So he'd assaulted a number of other people at the time, including a person who was staying at his cousin's house. So yeah, this is basically one of the better true crime books that you'll probably ever read, simply due to the amount of myths that it dispels. So yeah, you can read it on American Greatness. I will, in fact, link to the video, although the video is linked over here. So you can watch my interview with him. Now, to get to the subject of, these LGBTQ people, I'm reading this for real for the first time right now. So Provincetown, interesting personal experience. I went with the parents, my dad and my stepmom, back in, I believe it was 1997, to Cape Cod, and they wanted to go on whale watch and obviously see the humpbacks off of Cape Cod. And they drove all the way to the tip, which happens to be Provincetown, which unbeknownst to them is basically like San Francisco on the East Coast. It was really ridiculous, and me and my brother were there laughing as it was basically like we'd never seen anything like this. My sister had no idea what was going on. She didn't even know what gay people were. You have to remember, I think like 1997, she was probably like 5 years old, maybe 7. We're just laughing. It got so it got so obvious and unseemly that our dad had to tell us that stop laughing because people are basically people are looking at you, stare at them. So you can tell that I have a long history of not being very sensitive to other people's difference. And you know what? I guess he should have done his research because I don't think he'll ever want to go back there, and neither do I, quite frankly, because it was pretty much a dud. So it says here, Provincetown isn't a place known for social distancing. What's that supposed to mean? People flock there from all over the country and the world to be part of a summer-long party. It's one of the premier LGBTQ tourist destinations in the United States, and it swells with music, parades, sweaty clubs, packed restaurants, an essential thoroughfare that can get so clogged with pedestrians, cyclists, and runners that it's difficult to stay 6 inches apart from others, let alone 6 feet. I don't remember it being that crowded. It might have been that we were there late in season, but there were a ton of people there. It was pretty funny. There were like a lot of people there, but I wouldn't say that it was so crowded that you couldn't bump into someone else. The perfect holiday atmosphere set along the pristine beaches of the Cape Cod National Seashore has helped the town of 3,000 pull in more than $200 million in tourism revenue annually. But what makes Provincetown so successful is also what makes it vulnerable to the coronavirus. That threat holds a special danger because the average age of residents is close to 60, and many are immunocompromised. Oh, what could that mean? So they don't want to actually say what they really mean by that, but let's keep going. Locals understand the risks, but tempers are flaring over how best to reopen the town or if it should open to tourists at all. The most popular theme weeks and events, Women's Week, Family Week, Bear Week, the Provincetown Film Festival, have all been scrapped in an effort to curtail crowds, which ballooned to 50,000 during the height of the season. Just this week, the town's biggest event, Carnival, was canceled by the select board to the relief of many and the secret chagrin of others. So, yeah, they're basically going to be in the red the entire summer. They're not going to. It's going to be a lost season for all the tourist spots. But for some reason, they decided to highlight Provincetown. But the rest of the plan for how the summer will play out remains a question mark as the town waits for reopening guidelines from Governor Charlie Baker, in addition to suggestions from a local task force made up of Provincetown business owners, town officials, and medical advisors. As of May 14th, there were 41 cases of COVID-19 reported in Provincetown. The balance is to figure out how you are going to be busy enough to stay economically viable but slow enough to maintain safety precautions, said Rob Anderson, who owns the Canteen restaurant with his partner, Loic Rosignan. And nobody knows what that balance is. If we as a town don't decide and strictly enforce what it is we want to see, we could be left with a real health emergency. Anderson has been offering his take on how the town should reopen in Facebook posts. Sorry, it's good I'm not in Provincetown to cough on these people because it would probably set off a huge shockwave. Anderson has been offering to take his take on how the town should reopen in Facebook posts. He and other business owners are growing anxious as Memorial Day approaches and the town has yet to issue health and safety guidelines. When the governor eases restrictions, it means you'll have a lot of people from Boston saying, "Let's take a drive to Provincetown," said Patrick, owner of Marine Specialties, a military surplus store and head of the town's Chamber of Commerce. Anderson has already seen this happen on A recent warm Saturday, a crowd of day trippers congregated outside the canteen's pickup windows, some not practicing social distancing or wearing masks. He said several customers became belligerent when they were asked to follow safety protocols. So even over in Cape Cod, people are objecting to these ridiculous rules. There is fear that some businesses will rush to open without a fully developed plan in place, hoping to make the most of Provincetown's short summer season. Given the risks, longtime resident Myra Slotnick has been vocal in her belief that Provincetown should be closed to tourists this summer. So you have one of these Karens who is basically saying to the gay capital of Massachusetts, you should basically starve to death and forgo any money. It is my position that minimizing the number of people who come here will minimize the transmission of the virus, Slotnick said in an email. I believe that only residents of Provincetown should be allowed to be here this season. Second home owners who are residents make up 70% of the town. That has already allowed people coming from all over the country. Key West has closed its doors to all but the locals, and so should we. Yeah, they're going to lose a lot of money from this. Weighing heavily on Slotnick and many others is the memory of the AIDS epidemic, which took a heavy toll on Provincetown. Per capita, Provincetown has the highest rate of HIV infection rate in the state. The arrival of COVID-19 could prove particularly deadly to those with HIV and AIDS who are not on an antiretroviral treatment. Some are hoping for an ultimate throwback summer. Without the parties and heavy drinking that have dominated in recent decades, this summer could emerge as a reset and offer a serene, sentimental quality that hasn't existed in Provincetown in years. So, they're going to put a positive spin on this bullshit. I've been coming here since the late 1970s, said Anthony Facillo, director of tourism for Provincetown. Hopefully this summer is going to be what it was like 25 years ago. People are going to come here to heal. Yeah, it should be HEEL, as in obey. In addition to disagreements among year-round residents, those who own second homes say they are also feeling tension. Some said they faced hostility from locals when they left their city homes in March to escape to their Provincetown vacation homes. There was talk of slashed tires and fights, although most of the talk appears to be unsubstantiated, blustery claims on the town's contentious community Facebook page. I came here in March and was distressed by the us versus them anti-second home owner sentiment in some segments of the community, said one man who asked that his name not be used. I initially got mad, but then decided a better response would be to prove myself a part of the community. So now I do grocery runs and run errands for the elderly. So yeah, there's going to be, it's pretty much leaving this town adrift, as this photo shows. A solitary boat sat in Provincetown Harbor during the off-season. Town leaders are hoping for a quiet summer season to curtail the spread of COVID-19 to the town's at-risk residents. I think, maybe it's in bad taste of me to laugh at this, but you have to realize that the real problem is that people are looking at this as if the coronavirus is really the big problem here. The real big problem is that you have a lot of people who are getting AIDS. But the central issue remains having a plan in place for reopening to tourists, one which allows for some consensus between businesses and residents. That may be easier said than done in a town filled with larger-than-life personalities and clashing opinions. Actor and playwright Ryan Landry often refers to it as Problems Town. A look at the bickering on the town's community Facebook page shows that Landry is only half joking. Last month, the town manager created the Provincetown Recovery Coalition to formulate a plan for reopening with a broad range of interests represented on the board. Patrick, an eighth-generation Provincetown native who is a member of the coalition, said there has been pressure from businesses to offer a plan, particularly with Memorial Day weekends approaching. But without guidelines from the state, it's been a challenge. To some people, it looks like the town is not doing anything, he said, but in fact, everyone is working overtime and planning for some number of eventualities. But you can't put out 10 different plans for 10 different eventualities and not expect people to get upset or confused. Yeah, these people are confused, all right. And I think, look, they did end up bringing this up in the article that there's the HIV issue. Now look. You have in the county, it doesn't go down to the local level, but in the county, where Provincetown is located, which is Barnstable. But Barnstable is all of Cape Cod. You have 537, you have 1,147 confirmed cases. Okay, this is compared to, I guess, here, Norfolk County, Massachusetts, which has 7,412 confirmed cases. So yeah, this is, whoops, Suffolk County. That's where Boston is. So 16,000 cases there, compared to only 1,100 cases in Barnstable. Granted that Cape Cod is not exactly dense in terms of population. Even like you can think about it. I would say that Barnstable County is probably one of the middle ranked counties in terms of population in Massachusetts. Remember, there's some pretty populous parts. I mean, Springfield County, I have a cousin from there, or it's Hampton County, Massachusetts. There's a lot of people living there, But look, if you look at this map, this entire eastern seaboard is just a disaster area, right? If you look at where I live, which is Ohio, there's only a couple counties that are in the purple, right? My county, which is Cuyahoga, only has 3,200 confirmed cases and only 163 deaths. That's very, very low. And Detroit, which is the worst part of the Midwest, has 19,000 confirmed cases and 2,000 deaths. And we have to leave open the possibility that this whole virus issue is, I guess, it can't be really assessed, because a lot of these places, there's no consistency in terms of how COVID deaths are being judged. And then you go down to Atlanta, right? Atlanta is, Georgia is one of these states where they reopened early, and apparently, there's a lot of cases, but there's just not that many deaths, right? Atlanta, which is it's Georgia's big county, there's hardly any deaths here. And I want to tell you why I'm picking on Atlanta, okay? So Fulton County and DeKalb County and Cobb County are all the Atlanta metro area. So 165 plus 81 plus, whoops. Oh, that is Fulton. Never mind. So DeKalb and there's only about 250 or so deaths in Atlanta from the coronavirus. In Cleveland area, which is where I live, there's only 163. So let's look at the at the HIV map. So this is from AIDS View, right? I'm sure people were very thrilled at that map name. Now we have to zoom out. You'll notice that there's actually states that don't even comply with reporting anyway, because I think they're like, well, we don't want people to know there's a lot of people with AIDS here. But Barnstable County, which is up here, there's 391 of every 100,000 people are living with HIV there. Okay, if you look at their numbers, at least according to Johns Hopkins University, you have 530 out of 100,000 people living with COVID-19. So I think people should be a little worried that you've had for so long people living with AIDS, and what happens when people congregate there during the summers, which happens literally every year. Well, you're going to have more people transmitting AIDS to each other, but they're not going to, for all that they tell people to, I guess, take precautions and be mindful of the health of other people, there's still going to be people who take risks. So what do they do during those other summers? Do they lock down and force people to shelter in place and not go from home to home, seeing whether people are in there in order to prevent the spread of AIDS? No, they don't, because that is the difference. Now they're going and actually forcing people who normally live very, like, let's assume that they live responsible lives. And they're basically telling them, well, we're going to take the choice away from you, and you can't travel, you can't buy food, you can't swim, you can't do any of these other, recreational activities. You must have an essential position. That's what this ridiculous crisis has done. That back in the 80s, I would say that people probably objected to that when there was the AIDS crisis. And look, people should have learned then, I guess, that if you are willing to sacrifice freedom in the name of safety, you deserve neither. I don't remember who said that. I think it might have been Ben Franklin. It is ridiculous. I think that this shows exactly, excluding certain people. I think this shows exactly where the so-called LGBTQ community's values lie. They're really people who are steeped in fear and who are not really liberty-minded. And that's why I'm saying that if you're not willing to actually tell people that, you're standing in the name of your personal freedoms, regardless of whatever your identity is. Your identity is in many ways irrelevant. If you're not willing to stand up for those freedoms, then what you're really doing is living in fear and engaging in the bunker mentality for society. So that's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. As usual, you see the graphics. Take the survey below, read the article linked in the description, and please follow me on these other platforms. Of course, this is YouTube, but you may be watching this on BitChute, or you could be linked to this on Minds.com. Subscribestar if you want to donate, and then there's always Gab. And now the new channel is on Library. Have a great day.